All right. Well, I probably look different to a lot of people because I'm in a chair. I don't feel different. I've tried to explain this to my parents because, for most, okay, not most of my life because I'm getting older, but for the first 16 years of my life, I thought I was normal, other than a slow runner. I walked, I had a pogo ball, I rode my bicycle everywhere. I participated in intramural soccer and field hockey. There felt like nothing different about my childhood. It was a very blessed childhood, very normal childhood. That's something that I've learned with Liam is what it's like to be a child with a disability, because I wasn't a child with a disability. I had something going on with my spine, but I had no idea that I did. So after I was diagnosed, I had surgery for my condition, which is related to spina bifida, for those of you who don't know. And then coming out of those surgeries, I did have to start using a cane. Now, I was still able to walk. I was still able to access most places. I went to college with a cane, did 4 years of college, broke my foot, did college on crutches for a time, but that was all still upright. A wheelchair was not really in my frame of reference. About age 30, I think, is when I had to accept that I needed to use a wheelchair full-time. I'm 44 now, so that's been about 14 years. To me, it feels normal. I don't think about the fact that I'm in a wheelchair most of the time until I get to a place that I can't access. But it was a very, very slow acceptance. I went from a cane to one crutch, to 2 crutches, to intermittent use of the wheelchair when we were at the mall or a place where I'd have to walk more. We rented a wheelchair for a number of years. And of course, all this was after I was married. So Adam knew going in that this was a possibility that my condition could deteriorate, but I don't think either of us really saw that as a major possibility. After I had Trace, actually, it was getting a little bit more difficult to carry an infant and walk with a cane. So in our house at that point, which was a rancher and it had a basement as well, I had what I called my scooty seat. So it was an office chair that I don't think we had the back on it. Do we have the back on it? No. And we'd keep it at the computer desk, but then I'd just get on it and I'd scoot with my legs around the house where I needed to go while holding Trace. So that became normal there. And then when we went to Speedwell and needed to move, that's when we built our house and made it wheelchair accessible. And it was after that point, when I could use the wheelchair and get pretty much everywhere I needed to go, that I started doing that. I was also having episodes where if I was walking with my crutches and say I'd stop to talk to someone, which happens a lot, and I'd be talking and all of a sudden my legs would go, okay, we're tired of standing, and they'd just buckle. And I'd be holding myself up by arm power alone. So at that point I was like, okay, this is getting a little bit frightening. Maybe I should use the chair all the time. So after becoming a full-time wheelchair user, what did I learn? I've talked with people who say, wow, I had to use a wheelchair because I broke my foot, and suddenly I realized this is a big deal. And you don't really realize, you can try to understand as much as you want, but you don't really realize until you're dependent on that chair to get where you need to go, how it can be a tool, yes. It's helped me to go places and go to places where I'm gonna have to walk for a long time and not have to worry about my legs buckling. But it's also become a barrier, because once you can't walk anymore, and I've told Liam this, I said the important thing about you learning to walk and being able to walk, even in some situations, is huge. Because you get to a place and there's a few steps, well, I think I can do those few steps to get into the church. But in my case, nope, I can't. And I used to say, well, I'll just throw myself off my chair and scoot up the steps on my rear end. Well, and I would. But even that is getting harder, getting on and off the chair as my legs have gotten weaker and really they don't support me at all. I cannot stand. I just have to use brute arm strength, and that's getting more and more difficult. I'm also getting a little older, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's certainly something like that is going to be a barrier and has been a barrier for me. So this is just some of the things that Kim Jo has learned about being in a wheelchair full-time. First of all, I am now short, which this is really annoying. So if I stand, I'm about 5'8", and I lived my life as a tall person. And so I had a roommate in college the whole way through who was shorter, and she'd talk about being short, and I can't reach things. People think I'm 12 years old, on and on and on. I didn't understand. So now I understand. I have to say to my family, okay, tall people, could you please get the sugar on the top shelf of the pantry? I cannot reach it. Or I'm at the grocery store, and I'm like putting my brakes on, and then I'm like balancing like this, and I'm reaching up to get whatever is on the shelf that's above me. So I have to rely on tall family members when I'm at home. I have to rely on helpful people at the grocery store to reach things that I no longer can. And I now have sympathy for my height-challenged friends. I understand what it's like to be short. I have learned to understand what it's like to be stared at. This happened when I used a cane, certainly as a young person with a cane, and also with crutches, but I continue to be amazed sometimes at, it's not just a look, it's like, whoa. And especially if I'm with Liam, then it's like, holy cow, there's two people in chairs. What are they doing together? Did they let a group home out or something? And these people are out like, but yeah, and it's not just children. Now I know children are more likely to stare, but it is adults going. And when I put the ramp down in my van, and it is kind of loud, like people will stop in the parking lot and just stare. So it's a little uncomfortable. It can be a little irritating at points. It depends on my frame of mind. Sometimes I can just let it go. Other times I just want to be like, I'll just stare right back at you. What's your problem? So anyway, also I would say I have to learn to deal with that as a disabled person. It's hard when I'm with friends or I'm with my children for me to explain to them, okay, we're being stared at because I'm in a wheelchair. Or I had a friend in high school who, when we'd go places, and at that point I just had a cane, he's like, do you see those people staring at you? Like, what is that? And I'm like, okay, just let it go. Please let it go. But it makes the people with me uncomfortable. So it's very natural to be curious. The staring was something that I had to get used to, and I still every day, I don't always handle it well. So I'm at the mall, and someone comes up to me, and they're like, oh my goodness, can I pray for you? I just feel called to pray for you. And okay, so full disclosure, and I was very honest with Kelly when we talked, I am a pastor's wife, and this really ticks me off. Because I'm like, okay, you're wearing glasses. Could I please pray for you? Because obviously your vision is impaired. You need healing. To me, I'm like, this is the way that I am. I need this chair to get around. My legs don't work. Your eyes don't work. Maybe, I'm sure there are parts of you that do not work. But the fact that I am in a wheelchair suddenly makes me like a bullseye target for we must pray for you because obviously you need healing. And what I want to say is, well, obviously God doesn't want to heal me right now. Maybe my healing happens in heaven because I haven't been fully healed here. And it's not that I haven't prayed for it, but I've learned to accept it because this has, become my reality. And God is using me in the way that I am. If he wants me healed, he'll heal me. But I don't need some stranger person at the mall to come up to me and pray for me. So most of the time, Adam can back me up on this, I say, no, thank you. And they kind of go, oh. And I might say, I'm part of a church and I pray regularly for healing, and no thank you. I will not, most of the time, unless they're like insistent, I can't get away from them, but most of the time I will refuse their prayers. Not because I don't want people praying for me, but I feel like patronized, I guess is the word. And like I've been singled out because I'm in a wheelchair. And to me, this is a disability, yes. Does it make life hard? Yes. But I'm just living life like anybody else. I don't want to be singled out as different or be made to think that there is something less than about me because I am different. So that's sort of a hot button topic with me. Now you know. All right, this is great. Man, you're a pro at using that chair. Well, thank you. You're a pro at using those legs. I get this a lot too, like, wow, you can turn on a dime. Boy, you can really navigate that chair. Well, it's the way I walk. So, I mean, if people are stumbling all over the place, then they work on their walking. Well, I've had to work at, and Liam is learning this, okay, there are ways that actually you can get yourself through a door without someone holding the door for you. People will come and they'll hold the door for me, and they're like, wow, I'm really glad I was here. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not here most of the rest of my life. So how do you think I get through the doors other times? I push them and I go out. That doesn't mean that you can't hold the door for me, but it is sort of interesting that people think that like I'm some kind of pro. I really am not. So I actually had to call Adam one time shortly after we moved because I got the van stuck in the garage and I couldn't figure out how to turn the wheel to back the van out without hitting the wall. So I'm calling him on the phone like, I'm stuck in the garage. So I'm terrible with spatial relations. I'm like, really. But I have learned to move the wheelchair in the way that I need to move it in order to get where I need to go because it's my legs. It makes a lot of sense. Another thing that I've learned is how many places I just cannot go. Other people's houses are not usually wheelchair accessible. Why would they be? Even at the houses that I can maybe get into, I probably will not be able to use your bathroom because most powder rooms are like the sizes of closets, and that's normally what's on the first floor. So I may be able to come to your house, but I may only be able to stay for a short period of time. Also, if this is something we found out at one of our previous churches, if a party is in a backyard, I'm at a disadvantage because people say, well, it's outside. And unless your backyard is paved or has very nice paths or something, I'm usually like stuck in the grass or I'm like, sort of off-roading it in my chair to get from point A to point B. So mostly I would just, at those places, like, sit. Like, I'm not gonna move and have my family go get me food. Like the one house that loved to have backyard parties put the food on the deck, which had steps to get up to the food. So if I needed any more food or a drink or whatever, I'd have to find Adam or flag down one of my children and be like, hey, could you go get me something? So there's a lot of places, just regular houses, that I cannot go. Also, many older buildings are not accessible to me. So older churches that have not had to do or have not done ADA kinds of things. Historical places, and I love history, so it's really a bummer to be like, oh, I would love to go see this, but they didn't have elevators back in the 1800s, so that's hard. Even shopping plazas, I'm finding with older buildings, they might have handicapped accessible spaces, but maybe the curbs aren't always cut out, or the handicapped accessible spaces have very narrow, like they're either just regular with a sign, or they have very narrow, what I call zebra stripes beside them. I need like big zebra stripes to put my whole ramp down and then get my chair off the ramp and get out of my van. So there have been times that I've said to friends, like, let's not meet at that restaurant because I know it's in an older plaza and I've had issues with parking there before. So I found even in places that you think would be accessible, they aren't always. And even department stores and big box stores can be hard to navigate when displays and carts crowd the aisles. So, hey, we're in this huge department store, but we just decided to put a display in the middle of the aisle. Well, that's nice. Maybe you can sell a few more things. But I've gotten really good at just moving stuff. Just shove. racks away and move their displays out of the way, get where I need to go. So I've just told you a lot of inconveniences about being in a wheelchair. But despite all of these, wheelchair users really want to and often need to by, necessity. They need to be independent. They want to be independent. So, like I said, if someone rushes to open the door for me, like, you wouldn't be able to get in the store without me, I'm like, yes, actually, I could get in the store without you. I'm capable of doing that. I need to be capable of doing that because there's not always a doorman waiting to open doors for me. But I am glad when you do. I will thank you when you do. There are some things I will not thank you when you do. I do not want to be pushed in my chair unless I ask. So that might be my next slide. Yeah, here, let me help you. Ouch, you have spikes on your handles. And she's like, yep. Is there another part to this? Well, you shouldn't. Those things hurt. Not if you keep your hands to yourself. I have not done this, but even Adam, there were times where he was like, I feel a little uncomfortable because we're places and I'm not pushing you. I look like a bad husband. And I'm like, well, but I don't push people as they're walking. My mother seems to think, well, I need to push you. Rest your arms. I'm like, Mom, do you need to sit down and rest your legs? It's okay. This is my way of getting around. And when I do get tired, I will say to Adam, you know what? It's really hilly here. Could you help push? But I would if someone is uncertain, I would much rather that they ask, hey, do you want me to push you? Would that be helpful? And then I can respond. Yes, I'm tired, that would help. Or, no, thanks, I'm good. I want to exercise my arms, keep them strong as long as I can. Obviously, I'm used to propelling myself where I need to go. And when I'm propelling myself, frankly, I'm in control. So if I need to stop on a dime, I can. Or if I see a big crack in the sidewalk coming up, I can sort of deal with that as opposed to going, oh no, we're going kind of fast. I'm going to sail up off the chair and this is going to be entertaining. So those are ways that sometimes people think they're helping. And in my case, again, this is just me. I don't even think about the fact sometimes that I'm different from you because this is how I get around. A few other things before we run out of time. So I learned a few weeks ago, actually, when I was out with Cassandra. She was home on break, and someone complimented me on my wheelchair color. And I'm used to that. I mean, it's bright pink. Obviously, there's it's more entertaining than some wheelchairs. And she said, you know what? After the person walked away, she said, I really like when people do that. And I said, really? I'm going to be talking on wheelchair etiquette. Why don't you tell me what is it, as a person who's with me often, what is it about that you like? And she said, well, it's kind of affirming your good taste. It's saying, it's like complimenting someone on their shoes or an accessory that they picked out. They're not patronizing you. They're saying, hey, your accessories look great. Hey, your wheelchair matches with your sweatshirt. Isn't that cool? It's a way of acknowledging the chair without making it seem like the chair is weird or you are different. It's just commenting on something you're wearing or using, and it's cool. So that was interesting to me. It was interesting to hear someone's perspective who is with me, who is not disabled, who has had to deal with the stairs for years. What does she find? And I've never found that to be offensive. I like when people compliment me because I did pick the color on purpose. That's a color I wear often, so I match my chair. It's a way that I can kind of say, this is a part of me, and so I'm going to customize it. Because I'm a youngish person in a wheelchair, many people will assume that it's a temporary thing. So I have had some very awkward questions, and I don't always deal well with the awkward questions. So asking, what did you do is sort of how do I respond? So actually in college, I was on crutches at one point. This is like humble Kim morning. Full disclosure, so I'm walking around the Messiah campus, and a person comes up to me. It was what we called a non-traditional student. So she was a little older. They're taking classes. And she sees me on crutches, and her exact words were, "What stupid thing did you do?" Because we had just come off of winter break, and I guess she assumed I was skiing downhill on one leg and did something idiotic. I looked at her and I said, "I was born." Not my proudest moment, but it's how I felt. How do I respond to that? What stupid thing did you do? Well, didn't really have a lot of choice in this. So when you see someone in a wheelchair, just saying like, "Hey, is this," I've had people say, "Is this a normal part of your life? Are you recovering from surgery or something like that?" That's a perfectly fine way to ask. Saying, "What did you do?" Or, like, "Wow, I had to use one of those once. It was really annoying." Just talking to me like a normal person is so much easier for me to handle, and then you don't get my snarky side. I can really put up a wall when I feel patronized, because I want people to just accept me the way that I am. So those are some of my very honest lessons about what it's like to be in a wheelchair. I am grateful, and I really have tried to be grateful for when people do what they can to accommodate me. And this church has been very welcoming and very, very respectful of me, treats me just like I'm anybody else. I don't feel singled out. And yet I feel welcomed, because there are ways that you can be unwelcoming as far as steps or things like that. I can get up on the stage from either side, which is so cool. There's ways for me to easily navigate around where I need to go. There is an elevator to the second floor if I need to go there. There has never been an issue with me getting where I need to go in this church. And the churches prior to that also were very welcoming. Speedwell specifically put in a ramp for me so that I could get up on the stage. So churches that have needed to accommodate me have done so, and so I've felt able to serve and be a part of a church and not be kept from ministry or kept physically from a church building because of my disability. And I would say the same is true with Liam. Here, he has been with his youth leaders, with his Sunday school teachers, has been very accepted to the point that they will come to me and say, "Okay, how can we make sure that Liam can be included in this game? How can we make sure that we are doing things that he feels included?" And then just people cheering him on, noticing when he's making gains, noticing when he's walking instead of sitting in his wheelchair, and affirming him as a person, as opposed to singling him out as someone who is different or weird or stare-worthy or whatever. So there are a lot of blessings that do come from having a disability. And like Debbie said, one of the biggest blessings is just having an understanding of when others are going through difficult times and being able to say, I understand, I've been there, I can relate better than what I could when everything was going well and nothing was a challenge. And that is a way that God has humbled me, I hope, and opened up compassion that wasn't there before. So thank you for listening. Thank you for laughing at my ridiculous jokes and comments, and I appreciate you being here this morning.